Captain Elias Rowe was not a captain anymore. The war had ended many years ago, and he had left behind the life of battles, uniforms, and orders shouted through broken comms. Now he was simply Elias, an old man living in peace on the quiet colony of Durant III. His small house stood near the shore where the endless sea glowed silver under twin moons. Most evenings he sat on the porch, listening to the waves crash against black stones, a mug of warm tea in his hand. The people of the colony knew him only as Elias, the quiet one. He fixed broken tools, helped children repair their little boats, and sometimes told stories of the stars, but never about the war. He had learned to smile gently and keep his secrets deep inside. There were nights when dreams came to him, dark dreams full of fire and metal breaking apart. But in the morning, he always told himself they were only shadows of memory. One day, his peaceful life changed. The colony rarely saw visitors from off-world. Cargo ships came once a month to bring supplies and leave again. But that morning the sky burned with the trail of a ship, unlike any he had ever seen. It was sleek and curved, glowing softly as it descended like a comet. People gathered in the town square, whispering in surprise and fear. Children pointed. Farmers left their fields to watch. Elias stood at the edge of the crowd, heart beating faster for reasons he could not explain. He knew starships, and he knew this one was not human. Its form was too elegant, its light too alive. The ship landed gently on the beach, sand swirling around it like mist. A ramp opened and figures walked out. They were tall and graceful, with pale, shimmering skin that caught the sunlight and turned it into rainbow colors. Their eyes were large, almost too large, and seemed to look through everything they saw. They wore robes of white and silver, and in their hands were no weapons, only staffs that pulsed faintly with light. The colony fell silent. No one had ever seen beings like these before. The leader of the group stepped forward. His voice, though not human, carried in clear, perfect standard. "We seek Elias Rowe." The crowd turned. Every face turned to the quiet man who had lived among them for decades, fixing tools and fishing nets. Elias froze, his mug of tea slipping from his hand and shattering on the stones. "Me?" His voice cracked. "I am Elias." The alien leader bowed his head, a strange but graceful movement. "Our queen asks for you. She has waited many years. Please come with us." Elias felt every eye of the colony upon him. He wanted to refuse, to step back into the safety of his small life. But something deep in his chest stirred, an old echo like a name spoken in a forgotten dream. "I don't understand," he said. "Why would your queen want me?" "I am no one." The alien's large eyes glowed softly. "Human, do you recall me? Long ago in battle you saved the queen." The words fell like a hammer. Elias staggered, clutching the rail of the steps. Memories fluttered in the back of his mind. Burning ships, a broken comm, a hand reaching out through fire. But when he tried to hold them, they slipped away like water. I don't remember," he whispered. "Come," the envoy said gently. "Perhaps you will." That night, Elias lay awake in his bed, staring at the ceiling. The aliens had given him one day to decide. He had never spoken of the war, not even to the colonists he called friends. But alone in the darkness, the fragments returned. He remembered the roar of engines. He remembered the black void filled with streaks of fire. He remembered a voice, soft, alien, trembling, begging not for mercy but for hope. Then nothing. He rubbed his temples, frustrated. Why couldn't he remember? He had lived through so many battles, and yet one memory refused to stay whole. Perhaps the medics after the war had erased parts of his mind to let him heal. Many soldiers had chosen that path. But why was he being called now? The next morning, Elias walked to the beach where the alien ship still waited. The crowd had grown used to its presence, though they still kept a respectful distance. The envoy stood at the foot of the ramp as if expecting him. "Have you chosen?" the alien asked. Elias looked back once at his colony. The children waved at him. Old friends nodded quietly as if giving permission. He had built a new life here, but he felt that life was only a pause, a breath between two greater moments. Perhaps it was time to find out what he had left behind. "I will come," he said simply. The envoy's eyes glowed brighter and he bowed again. "The queen will be pleased. She has waited long for this day." Elias stepped onto the ramp. The ship was alive inside, walls flowing like glass and light pulsing like veins. It hummed with a soft vibration that reminded him of a heartbeat. He touched the wall with one hand and the surface rippled under his fingers. They led him to a chamber with wide windows that looked out to the sea. As the ship rose into the sky, Elias watched the colony shrink below him. The ocean glowed silver, the town lights twinkled, and then all was swallowed by clouds. The stars returned, bright, endless, and cold. He had sworn he would never leave them behind again, yet here he was, an old soldier carried once more into their depths. The envoy spoke quietly beside him. "The Queen remembers you. She remembers the moment you chose to save her instead of ending her. That single act changed her path and the path of her people. But she will tell you more herself." Elias shook his head slowly. "I wish I could remember what I did." "You will," the envoy said. The alien ship moved silently through space, faster than any human vessel Elias had ever flown. Its walls glowed faintly, alive with shifting colors that pulsed like the veins of a living being. Elias sat in a wide chamber with transparent walls, watching the stars blur into streams of silver light. For years he had sworn never to return to this endless black ocean. But now he was here again, carried to a destiny he had not chosen. His hands rested on his knees and his thoughts wandered. He wondered why he had agreed to come. Perhaps curiosity, perhaps guilt, perhaps because a part of him still longed to know what had been taken from his memory. The envoy, the tall alien who had first spoken to him, entered the chamber. He bowed his head slightly. "We will soon arrive at our home. The Queen wishes to see you as soon as we land." Elias nodded but said nothing. He kept his eyes on the stars. The envoy seemed to sense his silence and added softly, "She has never forgotten you." Those words struck Elias like a blade of light. Never forgotten. And yet he himself could not remember. The arrival after several hours, the ship slowed. The stars bent back into place, and ahead of them appeared a planet unlike any Elias had ever seen. It glowed softly in hues of turquoise and green, with rings of silver dust circling its equator. Shimmering clouds swirled across vast oceans that reflected starlight like polished glass. The ship descended, piercing the upper atmosphere. Elias pressed his hand against the window as floating citadels appeared, drifting above the oceans like islands suspended in the sky. Towers of crystal rose from their surfaces, connected by bridges of light. Strange flying creatures, their wings glowing faintly, circled the spires like birds of fire. Elias whispered under his breath, "It's beautiful." The envoy smiled faintly. "This is Sereth, our home. The Queen rules from the first citadel where the sky meets the sea." As they drew closer, Elias felt a strange warmth stir in his chest. Something inside him recognized this world. He had never been here before, or had he? The ship landed on a vast platform of light. Alien guards in silver robes stood at attention, their staffs glowing faintly. They did not move as Elias stepped down the ramp, but their great eyes followed him closely. The envoy led him through tall halls of crystal that hummed with faint energy. Symbols shimmered across the walls, flowing like water before fading. The air itself seemed alive, vibrating softly with a rhythm that matched Elias's heartbeat. At last, the doors of a great chamber opened. The Queen awaited him. She stood upon a raised platform, her form tall and graceful, wrapped in robes of pale silver. Her skin shimmered with soft light, as if she carried starlight within her veins. Her eyes, enormous and luminous, locked on Elias the moment he entered. For a long time she said nothing. She simply studied him, her expression unreadable. Elias felt his chest tighten. He had seen many leaders in his life, generals, admirals, politicians, but never had he felt such weight in a single gaze. Finally, her voice filled the chamber. It was calm, low, and carried the echo of many ages. "Human, do you recall me?" Elias's mouth went dry. He lowered his head, shame burning in his chest. "No, Your Majesty, I do not remember." The Queen's gaze softened, though sorrow flickered in her eyes. She stepped down from the platform, moving closer until she stood only a few feet away. Her presence was overwhelming, and yet Elias felt no fear. Instead, he felt something else, familiarity like a song half remembered. "You saved me," she said quietly. "In the war, when my ship burned and death closed around me, you chose mercy over destruction. You reached out your hand and you pulled me from fire. That single moment changed everything. Without you, I would not be here. Without you, my people would not be as they are." Her words made Elias tremble. He tried to see it in his mind, tried to remember the fire and the choice she spoke of. Flashes came. A broken cockpit, alarms screaming, a figure reaching, but they were broken, incomplete. I want to remember, he said. But it is like chasing smoke. The harder I try, the further it slips away. The queen nodded as if she understood. The healers of your kind often erase memories of war, do they not? Perhaps they did so for you to ease your pain. Yes, Elias admitted. I asked them to take away the worst of it. I wanted peace. The queen looked at him for a long time, then placed her hand lightly on his arm. Her touch was warm, almost human. Peace is a worthy desire. But sometimes even forgotten acts still shape the stars. The crisis. They sat together in the great chamber as the queen explained why she had called him. Her people, the Scifi, faced a terrible crisis. Their world had been sustained for thousands of years by an ancient system left behind by another race long vanished. This system kept their oceans balanced, their skies stable, their floating citadels aloft. But now the system was failing. Her people, brilliant though they were, thought in patterns of logic and order. They repaired what they could, but the deeper flaws escaped them. They needed someone who could think differently, someone who could see beyond rigid logic. That is why I sought you, the queen said. Because you are human. Because you act with instinct, with daring. Long ago you chose mercy when all logic demanded war. Now I ask you again to act where reason alone cannot guide us. Elias listened, stunned. He had expected a reunion, perhaps gratitude. He had not expected to be asked to save a world. I am no engineer, he said slowly. I am not a scientist. I am only a man who wanted to leave the past behind. The queen's luminous eyes met his. And yet you are also the man who saved me. Do not underestimate what lies within you. Her words unsettled him. For years he had thought of himself as nothing more than an old soldier, broken and tired. But now this alien queen, ruler of a shining world, was telling him that he mattered, that he was needed. Night in the Citadel. That night, Elias was given chambers high in the Citadel, with windows that opened onto the endless ocean. The sky shimmered with 2 moons and 1,000,000 stars. Strange flying creatures drifted through the night, leaving trails of light in the air. Elias could not sleep. He walked the balcony, staring at the alien world. It was beautiful beyond words, yet he could feel the tension beneath it. If what the queen said was true, this world was dying, and somehow she believed he could help. He closed his eyes and tried again to reach the lost memory. The fire, the broken ship, the voice. He saw the queen's eyes. Yes, he remembered her eyes. Terrified, yet full of desperate hope. He had reached for her then, risking everything. Why, he did not know. But something deep inside him whispered that he had done it because it was right. The morning sun on Sarath was unlike anything Elias Rowe had ever seen. 2 great stars rose together, one golden and one pale white, their light blending to paint the sky in soft colors of blue and silver. From the balcony of his chamber, he watched the light flow across the endless ocean, turning the waves into sheets of shining glass. The floating citadel beneath his feet hummed quietly, as though alive. Its great platforms drifted above the sea, held by forces Elias did not understand. Bridges of light connected towers that seemed to grow from crystal itself. The Scifi moved along the bridges gracefully, their long robes fluttering like streams of water. It was breathtaking. And yet, Elias remembered the queen's words. This world is dying. The archives later that day, the queen's envoys brought Elias to the great archives. The chamber was vast, filled with glowing pillars that rose like trees. Within each pillar, patterns of light shifted and moved, records of knowledge stored in ways beyond human understanding. The scholars of the Scifi greeted him. They were tall and solemn, their large eyes filled with curiosity. One of them, a female with skin that glowed faint blue, stepped forward. "Human Elias," she said, her voice like wind in a cave. "You are welcome. The queen has told us you may see what we cannot." Elias bowed his head politely. "I am no genius," he said simply. "I'm just me." The scholar tilted her head as if studying a strange creature. "Sometimes that is enough." They led him deeper into the archives, showing him projections of the great system that kept Sarath alive. Images of colossal machines hidden deep beneath the oceans appeared in the air, machines older than the Scifi themselves. They glowed with dim light, their shapes worn by time. "These are the core harvesters," the scholar explained. "They draw energy from the planet's heart and spread it to the skies and seas. Without them, our citadels will fall, the oceans will rise, and Sarath will become unlivable." Elias studied the images. The machines were alien, Strange beyond human design, but he noticed things the Sarathi did not. Rusted joints, uneven patterns, gaps that seemed too small for them to notice. "Have you tried bypassing the main channels?" he asked. The scholars exchanged glances. "Bypass?" one repeated. "Yes," Elias said. "If one path is broken, you make another. Humans do it all the time. Machines fail, so we improvise. We find another way." The Sarathi frowned slightly. Their minds, trained to follow perfect patterns, did not easily bend to such thoughts. The dreams that night, Elias dreamed again. He saw fire, endless fire. A ship breaking apart, his fighter spiraling through the wreckage. And then her, the queen, though much younger than, standing in a chamber filled with smoke. Her eyes wide, filled with terror. He remembered his hand reaching out through shattered glass, offering her a chance to live. "Why did you save me?" Her voice echoed in the dream. Elias woke in the dark, his chest heavy. He could not answer the question, not even to himself. The challenge days passed. Elias spent long hours in the archives, watching, listening, asking questions that seemed foolish to the scholars but slowly revealed new possibilities. He drew rough sketches on scraps of paper, lines and arrows pointing where none of the Sarathi had thought to look. One day, frustrated, he slammed his pencil down. "You're thinking too perfectly," he cried. "Machines break. They always break. You have to stop asking what was it meant to do, and start asking what can it do now." The scholars fell silent. Some looked offended, but others began to whisper among themselves, considering his strange human logic. Later, the queen summoned him. She stood by a pool of glowing water, her reflection shimmering like liquid light. "You are stirring my people," she said softly. "I don't know if I'm helping," Elias admitted. "I feel like I'm just breaking their rules." Her eyes glowed brighter, filled with a strange warmth. "Perhaps breaking rules is what we need." The failing system. The next day, Elias was taken aboard a vessel that dove beneath the surface of Sarath's ocean. Through its crystal windows, he saw endless waters glowing with bioluminescent life. Vast creatures drifting like living lanterns, schools of silverfish moving as one. At last, they reached the core harvester. It was enormous. A tower of metal and stone that sank deep into the ocean floor. Its sides were covered in coral-like growths, its lights flickering weakly. Great streams of energy pulsed through it, but each pulse was broken, faltering. Elias pressed his hand against the window, awe filling him. "It's beautiful." The envoy beside him shook his head. "It is dying." Elias studied the machine carefully. He saw pipes twisted, sections collapsed. He imagined it not as a perfect design, but as something alive, wounded, struggling to heal. And suddenly he saw it, an idea forming in his mind. "If you reroute the energy through the lower channels," he said slowly, "you can give the system time. Not forever, but long enough to find a real solution." The Sarathi engineers blinked, stunned. One whispered, "We never considered rerouting. The design was sacred. To change it felt forbidden." Elias shook his head. Sometimes survival means breaking what is sacred. Doubts, but even as hope began to grow, Elias doubted himself. Who was he? An old human soldier to tell an ancient civilization how to save their world. What if he was wrong? What if his strange human ideas only made things worse? That night he stood on the balcony again. The queen joined him, her presence silent yet powerful. "You doubt yourself," she said gently. "Yes," Elias admitted. "I am no hero. I am no savior. I am just a man who made a choice once, a long time ago. Maybe even that choice was just chance." The queen turned her luminous eyes to him. "I was there. I know it was not chance. You chose to save me when you had no reason to. That choice has lived within me ever since. Do not call yourself nothing, Elias Rowe. To me you are everything." Her words shook him. He had never heard such faith placed in him before. Slowly he nodded. "Then I will try again," he said. The cliffhanger. The next morning, the queen gathered her council. Elias stood before them, explaining his plan in simple words and rough sketches. Some scoffed at his crude drawings, but others leaned forward, listening closely. At last, the queen raised her hand. "We will trust him. The human once gave me life. Now perhaps he will give life to our world." The citadel of the queen shone softly in the twin-star morning. Light streamed through the crystal towers, dancing across the floating platforms, and Elias Rowe felt a strange mix of awe and nervousness. The time had come. He had spent weeks among the Sarathi, learning, observing, and offering ideas. He had begun to understand their great systems. But the final solution, the one that would stabilize their world, still eluded him. The Queen had called him to her chamber, the same room where they had first met. The glow of her robe seemed brighter now, almost radiant, as if she anticipated something important. "Elias," she said softly, "the core harvesters weaken. Every moment we wait, the danger grows. You must act." Elias nodded. He had sketched dozens of plans, rerouted energy flows and simulations, and consulted the Sarathi engineers. Yet something inside told him that logic alone would not succeed. There was one part of the machine deep in the ocean trenches that he had not yet touched, the heart of the oldest harvester. The Queen stepped closer, placing her hand lightly on his arm. "You have always acted when others feared. Trust your instincts." Elias took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Memories began to stir, the fire, the broken ship, the terrified alien eyes looking at him. He remembered the heat, the smoke, and his fighter spiraling as he reached out. And then the Queen's hand in his, fragile but trusting. It all came back. "I saved her because it was right. Not for glory, not for reward, because it was the only choice." The memory filled him with warmth and courage. He opened his eyes and looked at the Queen. "I remember now. I remember why I acted, and I know what I must do." Descent to the heart, the Sarathi had prepared a vessel to carry him to the harvester. It was unlike any submarine he had seen, sleek, transparent, and glowing with soft light. It slid through the ocean as if it were alive. The engineers watched nervously as Elias took the controls. "You must reach the heart," he said, "and reroute energy flows. I will guide you, but I will need to act beyond the schematics." The Sarathi hesitated. "But the designs, the rules." "Rules won't save the world," Elias interrupted. "Instinct will." The vessel plunged into the dark, glowing depths. Strange bioluminescent creatures swam around them, illuminating the path with ribbons of light. The deeper they went, the heavier the pressure, and yet Elias felt calm. The memory of his past act of mercy steadied him. Finally, the core harvester appeared. Massive, ancient, and trembling with energy. It looked more like a living organism than a machine. Cracks ran along its surface, sparks dancing through corroded conduits. Elias felt a shiver of awe. "This is it," he whispered. "This is the heart." Human ingenuity. Elias examined the harvester through the vessel's sensors. The Sarathi had tried every logical repair, but logic alone could not see the hidden pattern, the subtle imbalance in the energy network. He took a deep breath. "We will reroute the energy in a way that no diagram predicts," he said. "Trust me." The Sarathi engineers exchanged worried glances, but the Queen's voice came through the communicator. "Do what you must, Elias. Trust yourself." He moved quickly, guiding the vessel through twisting conduits and fractured channels. He combined flows, opened alternate pathways, and improvised connections. Sparks flew. The machine shuddered. For a moment it seemed as if the harvester would collapse entirely. Then, light. The energy stabilized. Glow spread evenly through the harvester, coursing through the conduits, and the structure hummed with renewed life. The ocean itself seemed to pulse in rhythm with it. Elias exhaled, a smile breaking across his face. He had done it. The Queen's voice came again, now closer, full of awe. "You have done what we could not. You have saved Sarath." Recognition. When Elias returned to the citadel, the Queen met him at the top of the main tower. The sun reflected off her robes, turning her almost into a living star. "You see now why I called you," she said softly. "Not because of skill alone, not because of knowledge, because you acted when reason could not." Elias bowed his head. "I only did what I had to do." The Queen smiled. "And that is why humans are extraordinary. You act with courage and compassion, even when the outcome is uncertain. You reach beyond what others see." For the first time, Elias understood something he had never admitted before. His simple act of mercy long ago had not been forgotten. It had shaped an entire world. And now, his instincts, improvisation, and compassion had saved it again. The people seaward of the harvester's stabilization spread quickly among the Sarathi. Engineers, scholars, and citizens alike came to witness the renewed glow of their world. They marveled at the changes, still unable to fully understand how a human could perceive solutions that had eluded them for generations. A council member approached Elias. "We do not fully understand what you did. she admitted. But it worked. The system is alive again. Elias smiled, gently shaking his head. Sometimes the heart knows more than the mind. The queen joined him as they watched her people celebrate. You see, she said, you are not just a savior of one life. You are a savior of many, and yet you remain humble. Elias felt warmth in his chest. For decades he had struggled with guilt, with memories erased, with doubts about who he was. And now he finally realized that his actions, small or great, had meaning. Reflection. That night, Elias walked the balcony of the citadel, staring at the glowing oceans below. He remembered the fire, the smoke, the broken ship, and the queen's eyes looking at him with trust. He remembered the choice he had made long ago, and he finally understood why he had acted, because it was right. The queen appeared beside him. She did not speak, only stood, her glowing presence comforting. Elias looked at her and said softly, I see now. My choice, my memory, it mattered, and I see why you called me here. Not to fight, not to command, but to act with the heart. She placed her hand on his arm. Human, you are more than memory or past deeds. You are proof that courage, compassion, and instinct can change worlds. Elias nodded, feeling a sense of peace he had never known. For the first time in decades, he did not fear the past. He did not fear responsibility. He understood that his humanity, the same humanity that had compelled him to save one life long ago, was powerful, meaningful, and enduring, preparing for the future in the days that followed. Elias helped the Scifi consolidate the repairs. They documented the new pathways he had created, though many of their scholars admitted they could not fully understand them. His improvisation, his intuition, and his courage had created something no perfect logic could achieve. The queen watched him closely. You have not only saved my world, she said one evening, but you have taught my people that there is value in choice, in intuition, and in mercy. Elias smiled faintly. I only showed them what I had learned myself. She shook her head. You have reminded them that humans can see beyond the expected, beyond fear. You have reminded us all that the universe is wide, and courage is rare. The turning point Elias Rowe had started this journey unsure of himself, haunted by forgotten memories and the weight of decades. Now standing amidst the light of the renewed core harvesters, watching the Queen's people marvel at their restored world, he understood that his actions had a meaning far greater than he had imagined. The choice he had made long ago, to save a single life, had shaped an entire civilization. And now, by trusting his instincts once again, he had shaped the survival of a world. The stars outside the citadel twinkled as if in approval. Elias knew at last that humanity's true power was not in weapons or machines, but in courage, compassion, and the quiet strength to act when it is most needed. The air in the citadel was alive with energy. Serath's oceans glowed softly under the twin suns, and the floating towers shimmered with renewed light. Birds-like creatures with translucent wings drifted among the bridges, their trails sparkling like ribbons of fire. Elias Rowe stood at the top platform, breathing in the vibrant scene. After weeks of work, the core harvesters were fully stabilized. The planet was safe for now, and the Scifi people were celebrating. For the first time in decades, the citizens of this alien world moved freely without worry, their floating platforms humming steadily, the oceans balanced, the skies bright. Elias felt a strange sense of pride, though he refused to think of it as heroism. He had only done what he must, as he had long ago. Still, the knowledge that his actions had saved an entire civilization settled into him, deep and quiet like the ocean beneath. Farewell to the Queen. The Queen requested an audience with Elias that evening. She led him to the balcony overlooking the central platform, where light from the twin stars reflected across the crystal towers and the sea below. You have done more than save my people, she said, her voice calm but filled with emotion. You have reminded us what it means to act with courage, compassion, and trust. Humans, you are extraordinary. Elias shook his head, looking down. I am not extraordinary. I only did what I had to do. You and your people have always been brave. I only acted when I could. The Queen reached out, placing her glowing hand gently on his arm. No, it is your choices that define you. Your compassion, your courage, your willingness to act when others hesitate. That is what changes worlds. You are proof that humanity matters. Elias looked at her, feeling the weight of her words. The memory of that long-ago war came fully now. The fire, the smoke, the terrified eyes of a young queen. And he understood that his choice to save her had not only preserved a life, but a civilization. And now by returning he had ensured their survival again. I don't know what to say, he admitted. Say nothing, the queen replied. Just remember that you have made a difference, and we will never forget you. The people's gratitude. Over the next few days, Elias was visited by the Sarathi citizens. Scholars, engineers, children, and elders came to see him, many of them in awe. They did not understand his methods fully. They had worked beyond logic, beyond their patterns, but they recognized that he had saved them all. A young Sarathi engineer approached, her skin glowing faint blue. You see the world differently, she said. You do not follow rules, and yet, everything you touched is alive again. How can humans think like that? Elias smiled gently. I don't know if all humans can. But we try. We keep moving, asking questions, and acting with what we have. Sometimes that's enough. The queen watched quietly, her eyes bright with pride. She had called him here, uncertain of what would happen. And now she understood the truth. Humans were special not because of weapons or power, but because of their courage, creativity, and compassion. A quiet celebration that night. The citadel held a ceremony in honor of Elias. The towers glowed in waves of light. Music filled the air, and citizens gathered on platforms to celebrate the human who had saved their world. Elias stood quietly, watching the light ripple across the water. Children came to him, fascinated by his human form. He smiled and waved, feeling a warmth in his chest he had not felt in years. He did not need recognition, yet he felt connected, understood, and appreciated in a way he had never experienced before. The queen joined him once more. You have left your mark on Sarath, she said softly. The people will remember you for generations. Elias looked out across the glowing city, feeling the truth in her words. I never thought saving one life would lead to all this, he admitted. You saved more than one life, she replied. You saved hope itself. Departure. Eventually, the time came for Elias to leave. He had been offered a place among the queen's advisors, a permanent position at the heart of Sarath's government. But he shook his head. My home is elsewhere, he said. I belong with my people on the worlds I know. The queen nodded, understanding. You will always be welcome here. And know this. Your deeds will be remembered not only by my people but by the stars themselves. Humanity has a light that shines far and wide. Elias smiled. He looked one last time at the floating towers, the glowing oceans, and the citizens waving to him from below. Then he stepped aboard the vessel that would take him home, returned to Earth Colony. The journey back was quiet. Elias reflected on everything he had seen, learned, and accomplished. He thought about the long-forgotten memories that had returned, and he felt at peace. He realized that the choices humans make, simple acts of mercy, courage, and creativity, could change the fate of worlds, not just lives. When the vessel touched down on Duranth 3, he was greeted by the familiar sight of silver oceans and black stones. Children ran toward him laughing, and neighbors waved. Nothing had changed here, yet everything had changed in him. He smiled, feeling the quiet satisfaction of a mission completed, a debt repaid, and a past reconciled. The legacy. Weeks later, Elias sat by the shore staring at the twin moons rising over the water. The stars above reminded him of the distant Sarathi world, where a queen and her people had survived because of a single human's courage. He knew he would never forget them. And he knew that, in some small way, humanity had left its mark upon the galaxy. Not through war, not through conquest, but through mercy, courage, and the willingness to act when it mattered most. Somewhere far away, the queen's voice lingered in his mind. Human, we will never forget you. Elias smiled, sipping his tea, and whispered softly to the night sky. Neither will I. The waves lapped against the shore. The stars glimmered. And humanity, quiet and resilient, had once again proven its power, not through weapons but through heart, choice, and courage.